Hello, hello, my friends. AmyR here with Prairie Paper and Ink. Welcome back to my face and my card making space. And I've been struggling with my creativity, had a lot on my plate. So, one of the ways that sometimes seems to help a bit, especially when one is feeling overwhelmed, is I like to concentrate either on a kit or a bundle. Lots of brands now do bundles of products where there's a stamp set and a die set and stencils, like coordinating products. And for today's cards, I am using Altenew's Craft Your Life project kit, specifically the Magnificent Magnolias one, where we've got a stamp set, we've got a stencil set, there's a 3D embossing folder, and there's also a die set that has the blooms as well as the outline dies for the sentiments. Love. So that's what I used, along with their latest acrylic markers. This is the second set, and I use those to do my stenciling on these little like vases. It was kind of fun. So, as always, I will have links to all the things in the description box below the video. My links are affiliate links. That just means that if you click on one of my links, end up placing an order, I do get a little kickback from that at no extra cost to you. That is what helps pay the bills, keeps the lights on, enables me to keep bringing out content. And yeah, let's get into making the cards. So the first thing I did was emboss some cardstock with the embossing folder. The cardstock I'm using is like kind of a cream color. It's from my stash. I apologize, I don't have a link for the cardstock. This stuff I've had for literally over a decade. It's like a natural cream or ivory with little like flecks of like other paper fibers in it. So I ran that through my Empress die cutting machine, and with Altenew's embossing folders, one cutting plate and the magnetic plate and the folder. Works a treat. So after I emboss it, there are, like I said, layering stencils in the Project Life kit or Craft Your Life project kit, and there's stencils that you can use these kind of on their own as well. Like you could just stencil like vases onto a background. I was like, ooh, those could be fun to like overlap different colors. You know, do like a row of like rainbow vases. That'd be really fun. But I just used the little sort of detail portion of the stencils that, like on that one, it did the bottom portion and the acrylic markers. So these they're acrylic like paint markers. And I'd purchased the first set, goodness, whenever those were released last year, whenever it was. And I've played with them a little bit and decided to pull them out for this one. And I'm glad I did. The look was exactly what I was going for because they're acrylic. You know, they have a matte finish. And this set definitely has more like neutral colors in it. And it literally created what I was picturing in my head, because I'm sure y'all have seen them too or own them. I think I own a little like plant pot that, you know, has like a bit of a solid color and then that sort of speckly, pottery look on the rest of it with a bit of texture. And this just worked. I don't know why, you guys. One, I love plants. I love house plants. I will say I've been keeping a selection alive. Shockingly, I've killed many. I've killed so many, but I've been keeping a few alive. And little planters, I'm obsessed with them. I have a ridiculous collection. I have more like actual little like vases and plant pots than I do plants. I have to stop buying them. I have to stop. I have a shelf full of them. Anyway, I added the detail using the stencil because I could sort of freehand some of this. That one with the angle, that one in the middle with the angle, no. Couldn't freehand that. It'd be a mess. So the stencil made my life easier. And then these don't have like wafer dies, but super simple to fussy cut. This was simple. Like I've made it very clear over the years. If there's coordinating wafer dies, I prefer that 100%. But when time calls, I will do even intricate fussy cutting. This, not intricate, very simple. Took no time at all. I just followed the shape. You know, there's no little bits or weird curves or angles. Like, this was simple to trim out. So I trimmed them out with my scissors. And then once I've got all 3 of these trimmed out, I actually took, like, there's, that leftover chunk of cardstock, and I embossed one more of the little vases because my brain was slowly starting to come alive again. And I was like, ooh, I can do like more than one card. So once they were cut out, I took the markers and did just a quick little second layer, as well as I kind of went over the little exposed edges that were left from trimming them out. So it just cleaned everything up a little bit, made it look a little more finished. So yeah, just went over it with the exact same color. If you're feeling like extra creative, or if you just want to play, you could like draw little designs. I did think about that. I was like, ooh, or even just adding a few little dots with the markers would be really cute. But I was, like I was saying in the intro, it's been a struggle, and sometimes it takes a little bit to get those creative juices flowing again. So I decided not to push it and just kind of kept going on the path I was on. So after I had my little vases, to add just another little like step up, just a little way to add dimension, is I took Rocky Shore ink, so just a light brown ink, a light like warm gray would work really nice too. I already had these out because I was planning on using them. So I'm using Rocky Shore ink and a little blending brush and just lightly blending just the very edges of these. So it just, like I said, gives depth and dimension, especially because I plan on stacking like 3 of them on one of the cards, and this just defines those edges and makes them stand out a little bit more. So I basically just ink up my little blending brush, and then I'm dragging it, like I'm holding this, I'm not putting these on my like grip mat, because I'm dragging the ink from my work surface. Like I touch the brush to my work surface first and then drag it onto the cardstock, just light hand, as you can see, just little tiny movements, and it just adds that little bit of ink all around the edges and just gives these a bit more of a finished look. So after I had added all of the ink detail, my vases are complete. And then I want to take a card front panel. So I've got a piece of just white cardstock here. And this is the one where I'm going to use just the individual little vase. And I'm taking one of the branches from the stamp set. And I'm going to kind of figure out where I want it. And then I'm going to stamp this with the darkest shade of brown ink in it's the Coffee Time or Coffee Break quad. And I'm going to ink that up and stamp that with espresso ink. So I got it lined up on my card front panel here, and then inked it up with the espresso ink. Turn over the stamp wheel grid, press that down, and then the layering stencil set also has a stencil for this branch as well as for the other like more ornate one. So I'm going to just use the little coordinating stencil and then the medium shades, which is mocha, and just quickly blend that over. Fills it in. Done. Love it. So once I've got that blended, off camera, I die cut all of the flower pieces from the Magnificent Magnolias layering die set. And all of those I die cut from just the same smooth white cardstock. And I'm going to stick those pieces to my grip mat, which is very stained. Just, it happens. It's fine. The more you use these photopolymer grip mats, the more they'll stain over time. It's fine. I know it really bothers some people. Sometimes it bugs me, but this, honestly, it's well loved, and I just don't care, I clean it off with photopolymer, like my regular stamp cleaner. If it gets really gunked up, I'll rinse it underwater, but like I always try to inform the peoples, do not soak your grip mats, because it's the same as your stamps or that high quality photopolymer. Don't soak them in water. They just need to be rinsed off and air dried, and they're fine. So anywho, I stuck on my die cut pieces, and these have the whole keyhole layering, that keyhole layering system that Altenew does, which just means that there's little center pieces, and you can't really see on camera because I left them in place because they didn't pop out when I popped them out of the die cuts, and I'll pop them out when I go to actually adhere them. But there's little shapes that are die cut in the centers of all of these layers. And there's also numbers impressed into them. So it'll be layer 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. And even little pieces that aren't big enough to have a number on them. It took me a while to notice, but Altenew puts dots on them. So there'll be like 1 dot for layer 1, 2 dots for layer 2, that sort of a thing. And then in the case of a set like this where there's multiple florals, like this is 4 different dies that I used. So there's 4 different keyhole shapes. So even if you did mix up the pieces, you know, you had them on it in a tray or whatever, because that's usually what I do, and they all got mixed up, it's fine. Because the shapes are different. So one's like a triangle shape, one's a keyhole shape, one's an arrow shape. So it's all thought out. I like it. I like it. You I know I'm like a broken record, but I do. When all of the extra thinking is taken care of, I like that. So for my blending, back to what I was doing. I've super sped this up, but this was very simple. This for me was very light-handed. And I still went a little darker than I intended, but this is another favorite like color combo. This is the Blushberry Bliss quad of fresh dye inks, and I've noticed I reach for this one a lot. So I started with strawberry, which was incredibly pale pink, and then I added some dusty pink. And then this last one is raspberry sunset, which is like pretty intense. So you can't really tell on camera, but I'm being very light-handed with this darkest shade. And I'm keeping all of the color towards like the centers of everything, towards the base of all the petals, and letting it fade to white, which for me, I'm improving because I am very heavy-handed. Like I want to slap all the color on, you know, just fully saturate everything. And like fading things out to white, I struggle. I struggle with white space and leaving white space. So I did okay. I'm happy with these. So anyway, the flower centers I die cut from color cardstock. I used Warm Sunshine and Reindeer Moss. And then to also give those pieces a little extra depth, I blended on, and I just used my little micro blending brushes for those. And I used Yellow Ochre and Moss fresh dye inks. And then the assembling, like I said, super simple. You just follow the numbers. There's the layering guides on the packaging. They've also got it, you know, on their website, etc. The website's nice because then you can like expand it. And sometimes I do that, especially when it's a big set and there's like a lot of pieces, and then the layering guide's kind of small on the like actual packaging. So you can just like go on the website and then I'll like blow it up really big on my computer screen. It helps. So you just follow the numbers and the layering guide, and then once you get them, you know, kind of put together, it's satisfying. Like the ink blending portion of all of the petals and everything, that's one of those things where I will just kind of zone out. You know, I'm watching a show, doing my ink blending, just doing my thing, you know? And then same with even putting these together. It just, as they're coming together, I don't have to think a whole lot, you know? And it's just really satisfying because then I'm left with these really pretty flowers. So yeah, I wasn't the biggest fan. I always thought magnolias were pretty, but I got to see like magnolia trees in real life last year, and because those do not grow where I live, so that was the first time I'd ever seen them. I understand why people like them so much. They're enormous, but they're gorgeous. Just gorgeous. Love them. So anyway, I just kept working my way around on each of these blooms, adhering all of the little pieces, and the petals themselves, it was pretty self-explanatory. It's always the center bits sometimes that might throw me off because it's like they're weird little shapes. But once you know layer them all together, it's like, okay, that makes sense. Like this little weird goobery shaped whatever it was like, oh, that's, you know, a little stamen or the little roughly centerpiece, whatever. So yeah, yeah. I always get sometimes a little overwhelmed, especially with big die sets like this. But once I got to this point, I was like, no, this makes sense. This makes sense. Brilliant. I never would have thought of something like this. So got all my pieces adhered, and then that final little green piece, which stumped me for half a second, and I was like, oh, it just goes right there. That's where it belongs. And then all those little white pieces, those little tiny pieces you can adhere to the edges of several of the petals. So, you know, it gives it that look that they're curled up. I just left them off. I could have gone through and, you know, put them where they needed to be, but I just skipped it, you know. So once I had all that done, for my card bases, I created 2 top folding A2 white note cards, so 4 1/4 by 5.5 inches, from Neenah Desert Storm cardstock, so craft cardstock. And I put the card bases into my stamp wheel, open up so that I can stamp the inside. And on the inside, I'm stamping the larger, like more detailed branch from the stamp set. And that I stamped with the Rocky Shore ink. And I did that to both of the card bases. So once I had it lined up, inked up, stamped, put the second card base in, repeated the process. And then off camera, I ended up stamping a couple of the companion sentiments from the set with the espresso ink. And I'll show that when I open the cards at the end of the video, because as usual, there are a bunch of sentiments in the stamp set, which I love. We've got the big scripty ones, which have coordinating wafer dies, and then a whole bunch of like sub-sentiments and phrases and all the things. So a couple of the scripty sentiments off camera, I white heat embossed. I did one on the Reindeer moss cardstock, and then I also pulled out Nimbus cardstock for the other one, because that went with the marker color that I used in one of the vases. And then to adhere everything, I just adhered the white card panels to the card bases. I'd trimmed them down to like 3 3/4 inches by 5. That's what I trimmed the white cardstock panels down to. And then adhered them to the card base. And then adhered on this one, I adhered my flowers. The vase I popped up with a bit of foam tape. The sentiment, I had die cut another scrap from the same color cardstock and just stacked those together. I'm going to adhere those at the end because of course I was going to add splatter to these. So adhere the sentiment and set it aside. For the second card base, I had also trimmed the panel down to 3 3/4 by 5 inches. Adhered that to my card base. And then the vases, I'll adhere the big one just directly to the card front with craft tacky glue. And then the other 2 vases, I'm going to pop up with foam adhesive just to give them a little bit extra dimension. And then after I get those popped into place, I'm going to adhere the remaining little Magnolia flower. Well, little, they're big. Because yeah, I didn't want to pack all 4 onto the first card. And originally I was only going to have just the vases because I was like, ooh, I really like just the look of that. But yeah, that little flower was lonely, and I was like, well, he'll just look cute on one of the vases. Why not? So got all of my vases adhered, and then I can pop that little flower into place. I did the same thing with the other sentiment. I had white heat embossed it onto the Nimbus cardstock, die cut it, and then die cut a scrap that I adhered behind it. But before I adhere the sentiments, I'm going to add some splatter. So I've got my black gouache, and as always, or not as always, but what I've been doing lately, this is what I call, again, light-handed. Because y'all know, if you watch my content for any length of time, I do like my splatter, and I'm pretty heavy-handed with that as well. But sometimes, being a little moderate with it is a good thing. So I put the black gouache onto my palette, watered it down a little bit just to thin it out, and then I splattered that onto these cards with my little fan brush. And for me, this is light-handed, And I only did one type of splatter. I didn't do like 4. This is my version of clean and simple. So added my black splatter. I let that dry. Once it was dry, I just adhered the sentiments into place, and that finished off both of these cards. And I made sure also wash my brush off, wipe off the palette, because that black gouache it will stain everything. Love it. So those are my finished cards. I love the sentiments. My ink blending on point. So even though I was struggling, I haven't lost everything yet. Anyway, like I mentioned in the intro, I will have links to all of the things in the description box below, so you can expand that and just check it out if you're interested. Thank you all so very much for hanging out with me, for thumbs upping and commenting. It helps a ton, and I very much appreciate it. And I will see you all very soon in the next video. Bye! Thank you so much to my amazing Patreon supporters. For anyone that might be interested in joining my Patreon community and supporting me, the link to my Patreon is in the description box below the video. For everyone else, as always, thank you all so much for taking the time to watch my videos, for thumbs upping, commenting, subscribe if you haven't, I'd love to have you. And here's a couple other videos for you to check out in case you missed them. Bye!